I'm very glad to be here this afternoon for talking about cultural capabilities. The 2020 Rome Charter rightly states that precisely our beliefs, our values, and our creative activities give shape to a city, which is the incarnation of our imagination, individual and shared. It's wonderful to see the city as the incarnation of our imagination. We must consider the city as the real and symbolic body of a community. Thinking about the city is one of today's biggest challenges. There is a potential in each of us, in our communities, that must be supported so that it can contribute to the construction of the city to the realization of a cultural democracy. The city is a place where the cultural life of the community is expressed, as described in the Article 27 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Everyone has the right freely to participate in the cultural life of the community, to enjoy the arts, and to share in scientific advancement and its benefits. Therefore, thinking about human capabilities in the urban context, as the 2020 Rome Charter does, is really important. I would like to quote the first apostolic exhortation of Pope Francis, Evangelii Gaudium, number 71, which quotes the book of Revelation and makes an interesting deduction. I quote the apostolic exhortation by Pope Francis. The New Jerusalem, the holy city, he says, is the goal towards which the whole of humanity is set out. And the Pope notes, it's interesting that Revelation tells us the fullness of humanity and history is realized in a city. The city, so, can be for us the symbol of the effort to advance culture towards human fulfillment. The city, in fact, is the place of processes where one experiences a singular interweaving of the superiority of time over the same space. The city is not only space and place, but above all, dynamic of events. The city is the place of strong, polar, and living contrasts and oppositions. In the city, we read in the final document of the Conference of Latin American and Caribbean Bishops in 2007, coexist binomials that test it daily. Every single day, we test oppositions and living contrasts. Something like tradition and modernity, globality and particularity, inclusion and exclusion, personalization and depersonalization, secular and religious language, homogeneity and plurality, urban culture and multiculturalism. The city is a place that risks generating the anonymity that is the opposite of belonging to a people, but it's also a place that can cause involvement and inclusion and bonding. The city must therefore fulfill its duty to support its inhabitants in their cultural capabilities by developing cultural policies, plans, and actions. Public administrations, local and national governments have legal obligation regarding participation in culture, enshrined not only in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but also in other international treaties and conventions. They must therefore implement effective policies and adequate resources to meet these obligations. The 2020 Rome Charter states that the right to participate in cultural life is based on 5 capabilities: discover, create, share, live, protect culture. So the ability to discover cultural roots, the ability to be creative and give life to cultural expressions that can enrich the life of the city itself, the ability to share cultures and creativity, to enrich and deepen social and democratic life, the ability to live and enjoy all the cultural resources of the city so that they can be a source of inspiration and growth, and the ability to take care of the common cultural resources of the city, to teach, to transmit, to prevent their destruction. So it's very important to talk about capabilities. Human skills are the essential possibilities to be guaranteed to a human being to make his or her life worth living. And it's very important to reformulate the principle of treating each person as an end, articulating it as the principle of providing each person with the fundamental skills for each and everyone. Since it's necessary to make politically concrete the idea of a life in harmony with human dignity, human capabilities play a particularly central and pervasive role in everything that is planned and realized. Above all, it's necessary to improve all those factors that increase human dignity, such as language, the surrounding environment, social relations, leisure time, all of which are outside the scope of purely distributive analysis of available resources. It is not so much the resources or income available that count, but the actual freedom to choose between a series of possible lives. This makes a city a potential place for effective personal and community emancipation, also in the cultural sphere. The 5 skills, as described in the 2020 Rome Charter, make one understand the importance of being able to use imagination and thought in relation to one's own experience, the production of creative works and artistic manifestations. And they make you understand the importance of being able to exercise your critical sense in a way protected by the guarantees of freedom of expression. This is very important because today, as the Latin American bishop said in 2007, today the city has been transformed into the place of new cultures that are emerging and imposing themselves with a new language and a new symbology. In the urban world, complex cultural transformations take place that have an impact on all dimensions of life. So talking about human capabilities helps to build citizenship, what we call citizenship. Pope Francis, as Archbishop of Buenos Aires, once wrote, "Living in a big city nowadays is a very complex thing, since the ties of race, history, and culture are not homogeneous. And the same civil rights are not shared equally by all residents. There are many non-citizens, half-citizens, and second-class citizens in the city, either because they do not enjoy full rights, the excluded, foreigners, sans-papiers, children without schooling, the elderly, and the sick without social security coverage, or because they are not in compliance with their duties." This is what Pope Francis said. And Bergoglio again wrote in 2010 that it is necessary to recover the effectiveness of being a citizen. So it's necessary to transform oneself from an inhabitant into a citizen. There is a big difference between being an inhabitant and being a citizen. This is very relevant, and I think that capabilities enable you to be a citizen. to transform an inhabitant into a citizen. So in this sense, I would like to point out two further points of reflections. For me are two very critical points. The first one is the relevance of digital connection, or in general, the digital connections. And so social networks, but not just the social networks, but everything we do in the internet. We cannot forget the internet in the so-called smart cities. Participation and membership risk being considered the result of a consensus and therefore a product of a communication. In this context, the step of participation risks being resolved in a sort of login procedure, perhaps even on the basis of a contract, which also allows a quick disconnection, the log off. The rootedness in democracy would result in a sort of installation, the setup of a program, software, in a machine, which is the hardware, the state, the city itself, which can therefore easily be uninstalled. But we have also to recall that Pope Francis himself has stated in 2016 that true, I'm quoting him, true citizenship is also built on the net. So even Pope Francis in 2016 stated that if you want to be a citizen, you have to participate to the conversation which is alive in the net. So the point is, how can we live with the internet as a form of participation and citizenship without falling into demagogic shortcuts? This is a question for all of us. The second one is the importance of overlapping consensus, as Rawls define it. Overlapping consensus of capabilities by people who also support different visions of human life. You know that Pope Francis is going to release a new encyclical in the next days on October the 4th about human fraternity and social friendship. And this is very important for understanding how we can live in the next years, trying to avoiding polarizations for building together the city, for working together for the common good. So people who would accept this concept as the basic moral core of a political conception without sharing any particular metaphysical interpretation of the world, no ethical religious vision, or even no particular conception of the person of human nature. In Cuba, speaking to young people, Pope Francis said, among the other things, open hearts, open mind. Why are we always arguing about what separates us, about what makes us different? Why do we not shake hands in what we have in common? We must have the courage to talk about what we have in common. But this is only possible when I have the ability to talk about what I have in common with the other, about what we are capable of working together. And then he told one of his experiences. In Buenos Aires, in a new parish, in a very, very poor area, a group of young university students were building some parish's premise. And the parish priest said to me, why don't you come one Saturday and I will introduce you to them? So they were dedicated to building on Saturdays and Sundays. They were students from the university. I went to saw them, this is the Pope speaking. I went to saw them and he introduced them to me. This is the architect, he's a Jewish. This is communist, this is a practicing Catholic, this is, and so on. So they were all different, but they were all working together for the common good. I insist a lot on this point. Cultural capabilities build the culture of encounter and mean the passion in wanting to design something that involves everyone. This culture implies the ability to recognize to the other the right to be oneself in its difference, making the difference an opportunity to realize a good that benefits everyone. In 2020, Rome Charter imagines a more, the Charter itself imagines a more inclusive, democratic, and sustainable city. Its realization is in the hands of those who inhabit it. And the meeting is expressed in a way of treating others that is kindness. Kindness. We are losing kindness in our way of speaking, meeting, talking to each other. And kindness is a very important word that we read in the 2020 Rome Charter, understood as attention not to hurt others with words or gestures, but which also includes saying words of encouragement, which give strength, which stimulate, which make possible a space of listening in the midst of so much indifference. This effort, lived every day, is capable of creating that healthy coexistence that overcomes misunderstandings and prevents conflicts. Kindness presupposes esteem and respect, and therefore deeply transform lifestyles, social relationships, the way of debating and comparing ideas. It facilitates the search for consensus and opens roads where exasperation destroys all bridges. It is really true. Today more than ever, in this time of COVID-19, we are discovering in our cities unexpected resources of kindness, solidarity, and courage. And it seems to me that the skills, the capabilities described in the 2020 Rome Charter are ordered precisely to live a correct citizenship that focuses on cooperation and not competition, empathy and not selfishness, which values the social responsibility of art. Thank you. Thank you so much.